In terms of what you'd see as kind of still the key outstanding issues that need work on, what are those things that still need work on? What are those key areas?
To begin with, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say that the only way I could cope with my experience, my latest one at Antrim Area Hospital, is to have blocked it out completely, like it just never happened. And so today, I've allowed myself to open that book and look into darker days. And I really hope today, and I've got a very strong feeling, that Antrim Area Hospital may end up to be one of the better hospitals around, and we may all learn lessons. I'm learning here today, and I might hear how patients can help to make improvements, and how nurses and doctors, who, from my personal opinion, have at times got it very wrong, that they can learn too. And I look today on a day of a new learning experience. Okay. And in the interest of brevity, to be very brief, I made little short notes of where things I found went wrong. If that is okay, I would like to just list them.
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah. The first thing is, when a drip is put up, with me, a drip was put up on Monday, and I was left on the drip until Friday. And when it ran out, it wasn't replaced or dealt with. And of course, you deserve infection. You observe that there's infection, there's soreness, there's dryness, where that hasn't been dealt with. But the worst thing is, at the end of the week, when the consultant comes round, he says that was totally unnecessary. If she was going to surgery, she would only need the drip from midnight and be fasting. She didn't need this left in all week. And to compound that problem, there was a notice in the lift saying that food and drink must not be brought into Antrim Area Hospital for the patients. So it meant visitors, family were visiting you, traumatized by you, stuck with this drip that was dried up, but nobody was listening. Nobody came. When you pressed the buzzer, nobody answered for about an hour. And the nurses were busy on computers and whatever, but it left you in a state of not only the trauma you came in with, but what family must feel to see such a situation. And somebody could come and say, look, sorry, we didn't need to leave you nil by mouth for a week. Now the consultant has told you you didn't need it, and we're sorry. We'll see that it may not happen again.
Rosaline, just one important thing. We're particularly interested, obviously, in the emergency department, and after. Those sound like issues that happened once you had been admitted onto the ward.
That's right.
We're very interested in particular, and I'm not sure how long your list is, but the things of the emergency department and how, when you were admitted into care from the emergency department, tell us about those things, because that's what the inquiry is focusing on. So.
In the emergency department, there was a waiting time there for me for 14 hours. The screen which gave you an appropriate waiting time had been turned off altogether. So that gave me an idea that the waiting is going to be much longer than most people would expect. And the pain, I had diverticulitis and I had a kidney stone that was causing me great pain. So I couldn't actually get up from the chair. And I'd like a nurse to realise that we're not there because we want to be there. It's because we can't do anything. We're in so much pain. Okay. And being told not to drink or eat anything, but when you're there for 14 hours and you're crying out in pain with the kidney stone all that time, the patients around me who were waiting, they were getting distressed. And one lady got up and she paid herself with her own money for a drink for me from a bottle of water. A small thing, but will I ever forget that kindness? It was such a wonderful act of kindness. So, having waited so long, I think when you do eventually get on the ward, if, again, your treatment is not very good. It kind of compounds what you've already suffered in the waiting time. So, yes, the next thing I wanted to address, if I may, was when your medication is taken and put in a locker. If you have an asthma attack and the nurses are too busy for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, to see to you, that can be very, very worrying, when you can't get to your medication. But I think the main point I would want to make is that when there's no communication for, like in my case, 14 hours, you're in terrific pain, there's no nurse observing you. Nobody sees you. The only person seen who gets excellent attention, which is the best nursing care I've ever seen, is to those who show like they're alcoholics or on drug abuse. And they have got terrific nursing care, and I'm glad they did, but I just wish we could be seen too and get that kind of care. So there's a lot of things I feel that can be put right. And I think also the availability of beds when you're in, especially Antrim area hospital as I was in, and you're waiting all that time and you're told there's no bed for you, but we want you to stay, we want to admit you. And then in my experience, a bed did become available, but a patient was confined there because he was drunk. And eventually he jumped out of the bed and knocked it on the floor and knocked some nurses as well in the process. And I just thought there's something wrong going on here. It shouldn't be that a shortage of beds, that they're used to confine people who are under the influence of alcohol. Mm-hmm. So there's so much that could be put right. And I don't think we need finance all the time. I think we just need some really good nursing care and common sense, really, and a communication. Many times nurses run past me. All they had to say was, we're doing all we can. That would have meant the world to me. We've all seen when you can be busy, you can't be everywhere. And priority has to be given. And yes, it leaves you very humiliated, and it had a very, very severe effect on me. And as for the complaint procedure, I have to say it doesn't work in Antrim area hospital. It does not work. When I had a letter confirming that my complaint would never be held against me, that was not the case. On the next admission, yes, it was held against me, and it was brought up and made me feel very, very, very sorry I'd ever complained to begin with, because it didn't work. So I would never complain again, because there's no one listening. You will get, at the moment anyway, and maybe there'll be a change, I hope there will, but my experience was that you'll be treated very bad. And I was informed by a nurse, don't complain again, because next time you don't know what the consultant could do. And the nurses are fearful of their jobs. They tell you that. They say, we can't help you, because if we make a complaint, we'll be out of work. We might never work again. What a dilemma. I don't know. Would finance help something like that? No. I think we need some real good nursing care. Openness. A surgeon made a mistake with me and sent me home when I was bleeding internally. She apologised, and I have the utmost respect for that surgeon. We all make mistakes. We don't get it right all the time. But to me, I don't know where she is now, God only knows, but she's an example of the highest professional level I've come across. To say sorry didn't take much. It meant everything to me. So I don't know, I hope today's a turning round day. But to me, Antrim Hospital is dead, it's finished. I wouldn't feel I want to come back. My GP says, get yourself up to Antrim. I walk out the door. I think I take my chances.
Okay. Can I ask you a couple of questions? I was interested in what you said there about the complaints procedure, and you felt that it had been held against you afterwards. So I suppose two questions about the complaints procedure. Before that experience, did you feel that the actual procedure was satisfactory, and then it became the problem that it was identified that somehow you'd complained before? So what was your experience prior to, if you like to use your words, that it was somehow used against you?
Well, when I complained before, the awful irony of it was that on the day I was to meet people to listen to my complaint in the hospital. Unfortunately, it was a day I had to have corrective surgery done as a result of a mistake earlier. But even then, I probably wouldn't have come and wouldn't have turned up, because the only place made available for me was a day room. And I felt I was too public to be able to talk about something so important as when things have gone wrong in the hospital situation. The day room, I was told, was all that was available. And I thought, if there wasn't a small office for privacy, how can that be encouraging for me to come on? I was already upset. So I was in surgery again, as I said, that day anyway. So that was the end of that. But I wouldn't have availed myself to a public area, a day ward. No, I wouldn't have done that.
Sure. And then my second question is just, you'd said that when you went back to ED and you said you felt that the fact that you'd used the complaints procedure was held against you, and was somebody kind of identifying to you that we know you're somebody who's complained before, or how exactly what happened? What was the circumstances in which you felt this was
one of the consultants who I had mentioned in my complaint, he approached my bed and he said, "I'm not on your team. Do you mind if I just call by?" And I thought that, it was to do with some treatment earlier, to do it because he'd put me on some heart tablets when I'd had a heart attack. But he didn't. He just said, "What do you do? What work do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm retired." But I said, "I work as a legal consultant. I represent victims in the court on a voluntary basis." And he said, "Oh, I thought you were a cleaner." And it was quite derogatory, but I don't mind the fact someone thinks I'm a cleaner, because in my working, I'm a retired homeopath, and I have probably done, in my nursing time when I was younger, I've probably done more cleaning than anything else. So it didn't upset me, but it did upset a young lad that was working cleaning the ward. And he said, "I don't want to work here anymore." He said, "Did you hear what he said about you?" He said, "And this isn't my job." He said, "I'm saving up to go to Australia, but I don't even want this job now. People are looking down on cleaners." So the nurse who heard all of that said to me, "Don't complain, because you don't know what that consultant will do next time. He could do something worse." So I came out of there and I thought, no, there should be a procedure already in place where that nurse should have got me some counselling and should have tried to reassure me. But I left the ward feeling absolutely awful. So sad for that poor young lad, and so sorry that someone should speak to me in that way.
Okay, thank you.
So we have, there's a lot to be addressed, and I don't think it's all to do with finance. I really don't.
Sure. Marion, do you have any questions?
You've had quite a lot of attendances at A&E at Antrim, have you?
Yes, I have. At one stage I had a strangulated hernia. And
all of your experiences...
It was all in the space.
Or have you had any experiences where you thought, man, that was really good care? No. It wasn't always such that it looked as though it was abusive or neglectful in a way, but it seemed to me that some procedures are laid down that are a bit out of date. Like, for instance, when I had a strangulated hernia, I was able to describe to the consultant how he would know that it was strangulated and that I really needed surgery. But he said, no, the rules of Antrim Hospital are that without a scan, he can't send me for surgery, or he can't even consider that. And to wait for your scan until next day, by that time, the connotations were enormous, and the pain was unbelievable. And then when the scan came up, they come to the ward, the team, and run past and banged into trolleys, food trolleys on the way, and scared the hell out of everyone. And my friends on the ward said, "Don't ever do that to us again, for goodness sake, you've scared us to death, So it's a bit funny, but I don't know. Just how do you put in place, how do you address things like that? I really don't know. I just think to myself, stay out. Just stay away, no matter how bad you are, stay away. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Rogers.
Paul?
I don't have any questions, Rosaline, but thank you very much for your rich testimony. Thank you.
Rosaline, is there anything you finally want to say? Is there anything you think you've not covered that you want to say to us in conclusion?
I would love to know what procedures can be put in place as a result of today, and how these really well-meaning and dedicated staff are trying so hard. If anyone can, in the next weeks or months that come along, if they could publish something that can give us all confidence, it could make so much difference.
Well, I don't know I can give you any guarantees. All I can say is that one of the things we will do, and these 12 public hearings are part of the process, is we intend to produce a report in the spring of next year, and it's intended to be a very positive contribution. We want to see how a human rights framework can be deployed within emergency departments, both for the respect of the dignity and privacy and other important rights of patients, but also for the respect for the dignity and the rights and for respect of those who work in the emergency department service. So I would hope our report will be a positive contribution to how emergency department services are developed, and that's certainly our aim in conducting this inquiry. So
Thank you.
And I'd just like to say thank you very much indeed for coming in today and giving your evidence. It's very helpful for us to get as many testimonies and a picture of both where things have worked and where things haven't worked in emergency departments. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.